Hi there, I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark, and we're so glad that you're joining us today for The Honest Talk.
We're excited to be bringing you conversations with some of North America's most inspiring women, and we are thrilled to be partnering with RBC as we do so.
This podcast is about leaving behind the talking points and diving into the real, authentic, and unique personal stories of our guests. Stories which we hope might influence or inspire your own journeys.
So let's get right to it. Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Minister Jenna Sudds, Minister of Families, Children and Social Development, and a Member of Parliament for Canada Carleton.
Jenna's career has spanned public service, municipal leadership, and now federal politics. She's been a tireless advocate for families, economic growth, and ensuring our communities are strong and inclusive. But as a woman in politics, she also faces the very real challenge of navigating the online hostility, scrutiny, and obviously the aggression that disproportionately affects women in leadership roles.
Today, we're going to talk about what it really means to be a woman in politics in 2025, how Jenna copes with the realities of her job, the support systems that help her thrive, and what needs to change to ensure that more women not only enter politics, but stay and succeed. Minister Sudds, welcome to The Honest Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I want to start, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and obviously you are incredibly busy. How are you feeling right now?
I feel good. I feel likewise, there is a lot going on in the world, and I certainly feel that, and I hear that in my conversations. But I feel well placed. I feel well supported to help to advance some really important work that we have in front of us.
You know, Minister, one of the things that I think a lot of women are feeling right now is a sense of uncertainty. So this sense that, the institutions that we've worked so hard to create space where there's a sense of equality and, that our daughters and our sons are going to be able to exist within an environment that's safe. There's uncertainty about whether that is being undermined. How are you feeling about that right now? I mean, you're a mom too.
Yeah, mom of 3 teenage daughters. And so I can certainly relate to those fears, and they're real, right? We are living in unprecedented times right now. But again, I take reassurance in being part of an amazing team of people, both elected officials, business leaders, nonprofit leaders, the broader community, Canadians at large, who have really rallied and have really stepped up to meet the moment and rallying around the challenge that we have ahead of us. And that feels good. It gives me confidence that we are going to overcome these challenges and, one foot in front of the other.
I remember when you decided to run for Ottawa City Council, and I think that was your first time running for elected office. If you could go back as a woman in politics who has now run successfully a few times, what advice would you give Jenna Sudds when she's just about to dip her toes into elected politics?
I think probably the best advice I would give myself looking back would be to surround myself with good people. It's really important as you do this type of work to stay grounded, to make sure you have people around you who will keep you on track, keep you accountable, and support you through the good and the bad, right? It's challenging work. But ultimately, I think when you have that support and that grounding, you are much better positioned to do it well.
Would love to talk to you about the fact that, you're a federal minister, but you're also a local MP. And that means that, when you go to the grocery store, you can't really set aside the mantle of the work that you do and just buy your lettuce. You're in constant contact with your constituents as well. That can be good and bad, right? It can be good in that you get a touch point, but it can be bad in that we've really broken down these lines between viewing political leaders as just objects at whom we can hurl insults. How do you handle that on a day-to-day basis?
Well, first of all, I would say I consider myself very lucky in this community in Ottawa, in Canada, in that through the course of my career, I have been able to build some great relationships. And I'm also very fortunate to be a member of parliament, a cabinet minister who actually lives in Ottawa, who is not traveling back and forth day in and day out, week after week. And that's very challenging. So for myself, I did find it more challenging, I'll admit, when my children were younger, when I was at the grocery store with the kids, trying to do that and to be mom. And then, of course, engaging with folks who had questions or issues. And that's really, really challenging. It is a bit easier these days because my teenagers aren't interested in going to the grocery store with me. So it's a bit easier, but honestly, they're typically really good conversations, and I feel blessed. And I also really appreciate that people feel like they can approach me and that we can have dialogue wherever I am in the community. That's a good thing, frankly. I think it's good for our democracy. I think it enables me to do my job better. Of course, there's times I would rather, put on a toque and some sunglasses and not chat. I stay home those days, right? Like you have to recognize that when you're out, you're on and you're engaging with the public.
What kind of questions, you have three girls, what kind of questions do they ask you, Minister, over the course of your career about your career? And what do they think about having a mom that's a minister?
I mean, it's been a while now. I've been in politics, and now the girls are all teenagers. Interestingly enough, my oldest in grade 12 is doing grade 12 politics right now,
Mm.
which I think is so hilarious. And I actually asked her the other day because she was telling me what they did in class, and she had to answer a question about who were the three elected officials in that represent the school area. And she was the only kid who knew. And of course, the teacher has all these campaign signs up front, and there's her mom's campaign sign. And I said to her, like, isn't this weird? Like, how do you feel about this? And she's like, I just pretend that you're not my mom.
Fair enough.
Which is
Right.
like
So,
great resilience, and
yeah.
which as a mom, you try not to take personally.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but I totally respect it. We also had a conversation about the Liberal leadership race, and she's registered to vote. And I was saying to her, you should really talk about this in your politics class. Like, you're probably the only 17-year-old in your class who's going to do this. And she's like, there's no way, Mom. Right. So I feel very fortunate. The girls have been really supportive, but I also just love that they're exposed to what I do, that they're learning alongside me, frankly. But I think most importantly, that they see that anything's possible, right? That they see hard work. They see me chasing my dreams, supporting my community. And that ultimately is the most important thing, frankly, as a mom. And I think especially with three daughters watching. So,
So when I grew up in politics, and I think one of the things that always surprised me is that people would ask questions like, what's it like to grow up with? And I would be kind of like, I wonder if they don't realize that it's just my parent, right? Like I don't
yeah,
see a title. I don't see it's just my parent.
yeah.
And so on the other hand, as that parent, you're also trying to protect your kid from the types of things that go along with your job. How do you help create an environment where your kids are not hurt and also not disillusioned? Because inevitably they are going to be hurt in some way. They're very protective of their parent. Um, how do you create that environment where they feel okay to talk to you and ask questions and still be
Mhm.
contributing members of society themselves instead of just kind of angry at what you have to face perhaps on a daily basis?
Sure. That's a great question, Catherine. And I think it comes from, first of all, just being their mom, right? Like making sure that they have that space to be able to trust me to have conversations. And likewise, being very open with them about my career and the issues I'm working on, the challenges we see in our community, in our country. The ages that they are now as teenagers, those are important conversations. And I think by me sharing and frankly also being vulnerable about some of those challenges, I think empowers them to do the same and enables us to have a really strong relationship. Having said that, they're teenagers. They just need mom. They don't need career mom. They don't need to be sidetracked by all that's going on. But I'll tell you, one of the things I'm very regimented about is making sure that I get to their games, that I take them to their tournaments, that I do all the normal things that moms aspire to do. And those are car trips across the city where they have no choice but to talk to me, right? So, I try to make sure that I'm very involved in their lives at the same time where those opportunities for discussion just happen, right?
So I know you personally, and I know what a committed member of obviously the community you are, even before you ran for office. I know what an incredible mom you are, and I know what an incredible friend you are. But all of that is give, 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 Minister. How do you recharge your own battery?
Well, I also have an amazing partner. So very fortunate in life. We just celebrated 20 years of marriage, and that's an accomplishment in and of itself in politics, and I don't take that for granted. So investing time in our relationship is also really important. But honestly, I shared I'm very regimented about being there for my kids. I'm also pretty regimented about being there for myself. And I just turned 46. I know what I need to stay sane. And for me, my alarm goes off at 5:30 every morning. And those first few hours of every day are mine. And, whatever that looks like, typically it's a workout, it's a run, it's a great breakfast, it's a delicious coffee. It's what I know I need to start my day really well, focused on me. My kids are asleep, my husband's asleep. It's just my time. So, I am a bit selfish in that regard, but I know that's what I need, and so I take it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that you're selfish in that regard because, I think that's not selfish. That's safeguarding your own health, your own mental health. And yet, as women, we do still tend to think of those things as selfish.
It's
Like, oh, I'm
true.
taking care of myself. That's,
It's
I'm
terrible,
making
isn't
it.
it?
Yeah, but it's true. And I think Jen and I really appreciate
Yeah.
that you talk about the fact that you take that time because especially as we get older,
Mhm.
a lot of women discover what do I need to ensure that I'm at my best throughout the day. And it's different for every woman. Um,
Absolutely.
but starting your day with some time for yourself to ground yourself is a really smart technique. You are quite physically active, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty impressive given the schedule that you maintain. Like, how do you carve out that time?
That's my 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So that's half
And you
hour
really
of
think about
weights
it?
and 5-kilometer run, and away I go starting my day, right? Honestly, if I don't do that, I don't have a good day. If I
Yeah.
don't do it, all I do is all day of think about when am I going to be able to fit this in, right? Because I know that's what I need to feel grounded, and have that time for myself. So it's a priority, right? You don't always feel like getting up when the alarm goes off, but you regret it if you don't, frankly.
Well, and even the eating element too, like just trying to have a regular meal
Mhm.
given the type of schedule that you have, which is not like a lot of people either go to work or work from home. They have scheduled times or they
Sure.
bring a lunch or whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. And so even the eating right element has got to be quite a trick for you.
Well, funny you should say that, Catherine. I have a bit of a reputation on Parliament Hill for my little white and blue striped lunch bag because it goes everywhere with me. I meal prep on Sunday nights. I get myself organized for the week, and every breakfast, lunch, and if I know I'm going to be on the hill for dinner, I take dinner too. Right? Because typically the food you find when you're scrambling is not good food. And I need good food to feel nourished and to feel healthy. So I admittedly, again, a bit rigid in that regard, but it keeps me sane, it keeps me moving, it keeps me healthy.
Speaking of women in politics, Minister, we see the tagline, see her, be her, a lot. But we've also seen a number of female MPs say they won't be running in the next election. How do we encourage women who are in office to stay in office when there's a lot of vitriol, there's a lot of online hate, and it's a really tough job. It's not even a job, it's a lifestyle.
It is a lifestyle. Yeah, agreed. It's hard. I won't deny that there is a lot of hatred and online attacks that unfortunately have been normalized, and unfortunately, a lot of MPs, and I'll say particularly female MPs, racialized MPs, are dealing with, or all elected officials really. When I look around at my colleagues, my MP colleagues, if particularly the female colleagues, and many who have, now said they're not going to run again, I think we need to do a better job as society, frankly, of first of all, valuing the work that we all do. But second of all, just calling out the hatred, calling out the online attacks. We can't normalize this. And unfortunately, it feels as though it has become normalized. One of my favorite parts of every week when I'm on Parliament Hill is Wednesdays at lunch. We have our Liberal Women's Caucus meeting. And I mean, it's an hour and a half together as a tribe, frankly, to be able to talk through challenges, talk through issues, support each other. And I think that's incredibly, incredibly important. And I hope that women who, consider politics as a path forward knows that there is a tribe and there are people each and every day that are there to support fellow colleagues, fellow elected officials, and frankly want to do so because they share the same challenges and they value what you bring to the table.
We've chatted with a lot of women in very senior positions who have said, Vashi Capellos is one of them and Rosemary Barton is another. They just got off social media because it was too intense and it was too hate filled. And then there's the phenomenon of Mel Robbins' book right now, which is let them say things and just move on with your life. What is your tactic or the tool that you use, because there's so much online hatred, to kind of rise above it?
So I try not to look.
Yeah.
Truthfully. And some platforms are obviously worse than others. So there's no point in looking at any Twitter comments, frankly.
Yeah.
Because none of them are going to be nice. Other platforms hit and miss, but I really don't need to see that. And frankly, if there is something I need to see, somebody's going to tell me I need to see it. Right? I'm fortunate as well. Obviously, there is some monitoring that's offered through Parliament. And so from a security perspective, I know that there are eyeballs if there is an actual threat or something that goes above and beyond, that it's being monitored, and I'll be notified. Police will be notified if they need to be. So, my sanity is really not to engage and to try my hardest not to look.
Just to follow up quickly, if you look at your career, would you say when talking to other women, politics is worth it as a choice, as a career option for other women? Because there are a lot of reasons, and there's a lot of disillusionment right now.
Yeah.
Why women might choose not to get involved. Why should they get involved?
Absolutely. you should get involved if you have an inkling or a desire. And why? Because it is just such an incredible opportunity to help people, either at the individual level, at the community level, and frankly, to have the opportunity to help our country.
Well, I think, Catherine, I just want to thank you for the work that you do, for the example that you set for your daughters, and frankly, for little girls and little boys everywhere for entering political life, particularly during some really tumultuous times when probably the easy choice is not to do so. So we're grateful for you, and we're grateful for your time today on The Honest Talk.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. But thank you as well for this talk, this opportunity, this platform. I know I listen on a regular basis, and there are always amazing conversations, and I learn something every time. So thank you for doing it as well.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap. And to our listeners across Canada and around the world, we thank you for joining us.
You can hear The Honest Talk on iTunes, Spotify, and Simplecast, brought to you by RBC. You can also get more information on stories that matter to you at our website, thehonesttalk.ca, and sign up for our weekly newsletter where you'll get fabulous stories delivered right to your inbox.
But for now, thank you for being a part of today's podcast. Stay tuned for more great conversations and stay well.